So I did a little math, and at this rate of subscribers, we're at about 91 a year, which means in 10,989 years, we're going to have 1 million subscribers.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Bing slouches.
Forgot to mute the
You guys got it all today.
on the first the intro there on the live stream. Sorry if
you went live after I was using the restroom, right?
No, man. we got the full urination in there.
Man, now they know I don't wash my hands.
All right, so today,
that was a joke.
Look, the whole season, everything's kind of a crapshoot right now. Motivation's wavering. People's mental state in their training is all over the map.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of going in waves.
It is. So today we're going to talk about a lot of the upsides that we're seeing to a theoretical season with no races. So we're just going to assume today that every race for the rest of the season gets canceled, and then you don't have a race to actually train for. Mm-hmm. All right. So, considering we've had almost no races to this point, as it is, we can kind of go over a lot of the things that we've seen that are actually like really beneficial and
positive,
the upside. So let's keep the glass half full today, and we'll kind of cover all that good stuff.
And that said, the season, I mean, there's still chances for races to go off.
Sure.
So it's not over till
we're not saying it's over.
Till someone's singing.
Yeah, we're not saying that there aren't going to be any races, but we're going to assume that there aren't any.
Yep.
And
the pluses they can
the plus
take from
sides. So
cool.
I am Coach Dale Sanford.
And I am Coach Bryant Funston. We are the co-founders of BPC Performance Coaching, where we specialize in helping time-crunched athletes optimize their busy schedules so they can maximize their athletic performance. Every BPC coach is trained in our 5 pillars coaching system that has been developed over the last 11 years through our work with athletes of all ages and ability levels, from fresh off the couch to world championship competitors. You can find out more about BPC by going to buildpeakcompete.com, checking out Facebook and YouTube at Build Peak Compete, and all up on that Instagram at BPC Performance.
It's almost like we didn't take 2 weeks off.
Good thing I got the handy dandy phone right here. No, we mentioned YouTube.
Oh yeah, little shout out here.
We got a shout out.
Little shout out.
Shout out to all you YouTube subscribers. We it was recently brought to our attention that we have hit 1,000 subscribers. For those on video, my daughter made the sign for us. So if you're watching on the video, very fine sign. So we did a little math on it. We've been going for 11 years now.
I accidentally put the shout at sign up. I'm gonna put the
shout outs.
Shout at.
So we
McKenna for making this sign. That
shout out to my oldest daughter. Yep, making this sign. So I did a little math, and at this rate of subscribers, we're at about 91 a year, which means in 10,989 years, we're gonna have 1 million subscribers.
There you go. You heard it first, people. All right, let's step it up. Let's step it up. Anyone who's listening needs to go to our YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button.
At Build Peak Compete. Give us some thumbs up.
Go there.
Share with your friends.
At Build Peak Compete, and give us
especially your friend that maybe is down in the dumps because they haven't had any races this year.
Yeah, I mean, there's been pretty much none.
Yep.
Especially on the triathlon front. There's been a couple small sprints that have happened, but not to fret.
Yep. Lemonade time.
Yep. So we've seen, we've got athletes that are hitting new threshold bests in July. which especially in triathlon, this time of year does not happen.
Exactly.
Because of the heat, because of how many races people are doing, and the type of training that you're generally doing this time of year doesn't necessarily lend itself for boosting threshold. We're usually more working on race specific efforts, which for most people doing long course is very steady state, tempo
sub
at most.
threshold stuff.
So we don't have a lot of time to work on threshold, but we're seeing that right now because we've had that time. We're seeing people hit new threshold bests. I've got people that are, running their, they'll do a tempo workout, a running workout, and they'll hit their best 10K, just in that workout. And that's with the intervals on and off. Your rest periods are much easier than your running. So, we're seeing all these people make these great gains when they normally would not have. I mean, we'll go into this again, but we've seen people making gains in the pool, even though in our area, we're still very limited on being able to swim. But through some of the dryland work that people have been doing, they've gotten back in the pool after 2 and 3 months of not swimming and hit their best 400-meter time trial. And so there's a lot of great things that are happening right now. On top of the fact that, just in general, because of people not working, we're seeing more people getting into the sports in general. Endurance sports, cycling is ridiculous right now.
Most people probably know that it was impossible to find bikes under $6,000 for a long period of time. And I think it's still tough to get a bike that.
The bike companies are digging into their 2021 inventory already just to kind of meet the demand. So it's awesome to see new people getting into cycling and people just having more time because they're not going to the office to get into running and things like that. So
we've heard from a bunch of folks, they've been able to take on a bigger training load because they're cutting out commute time. So now that time that was spent, an hour for some people each way to work, dealing with traffic and stuff, now they're able to ride their bike for an extra
I feel like there's this groundswell coming, and once things normalize and we can congregate in larger groups again, the community is going to have grown so much, and we're not seeing the benefit of this now, but we're gonna see it next year and for the years to come, because so many people have taken on new fitness regimens and stuff like that. So if nothing else, that is a huge thing to stay positive on, because just know that a lot of these local races that may have been dwindling over the last couple of years are probably going to see a resurgence next year because of the new people coming into the sports. So, it's exciting to me to think about, next season, what it could look like.
For sure.
But let's look at it personal, the individual benefits here. So one of the main things that we see every year when races kick off, biggest time in the summer, you've got, there's basically, you could race every weekend if you wanted to, for the most part. So generally what we see in that cycle is that people are always kind of not tapering per se, but letting off for...
you want to be fresh going into your race so you have a good result, right? So a lot of times if we have an athlete who's racing 2 times a month and they want to go in fresh, we do our best to try to pick out goal races and have others as train through style races. But even still, you don't want them going into a weekend carrying a ton of fatigue all the time, and mentally they may not want to have a bad race. So there's some psychology involved, in knowing your athlete and making sure they're getting a quality result to keep motivation and confidence high. But without those races to work around, without having to take it easy 2 of the 4 weeks per month, people are able to build a bigger level of fitness. They're getting more training stress, more training load into their bodies, and they're less concerned about maybe feeling tired than they would be otherwise, because there's not a race coming up to be worried about.
If you look at if you're one of the data people and you upload everything that you do like, and you look at your like CTL and your TSS scores and all that stuff, then you'll notice that if you look on weeks where you had a race, like a lot of times, even though that race could be super intense, and maybe even long, but because you back down for 2-3 days or whatever prior to a race, the weekly training load is usually less than if you were just training without a race that week. And so, like you said, if you're racing 2 and 3 weeks out of the month, those reduced training loads over time will actually reduce your overall fitness. You may race better, but as far as your ability to handle a training load, a higher training load, it's going to slowly diminish.
Eventually fitness falls off. And in the road cycling world, it's kind of a different beast. Like, I forget who I was chatting with last week. It's like the point of during a race, you're trying to do as little work as possible, right? You're trying to be as efficient as you can and do the least amount of work you can until the very end or to that point in the race where it really matters. So in a race, you're trying to do as little as possible. Whereas in training, it kind of flips, right? You go the opposite with it. Now you're trying to get a big training load in. So if you're someone who's a road racer, cyclist, a lot of times, especially if you're not like a Cat 1 or 2, and your mileage is for a race weekend is pretty short. If you're a Cat 4 and you're doing a 35-mile road race on Saturday and a 45-minute crit and a 5-mile time trial, I mean, that's not going to put a big training stress into your system.
When a lot of people are going out and doing 50 plus,
50, 60, 70,
maybe even more on Sunday, or a good back-to-back weekend. When you get into if you're in that Cat 4 category and you're doing like 30-minute crits and 40-mile road races, like, it's just your training load just drops. And we try, like, every year we try to kind of explain this to people. But people love to race, and we get it. It's awesome. It's fun.
Exactly.
It is the reward for doing the work. But sometimes you got to wait for the reward. You just got to put in the work.
So like plus side here, those people, I coach quite a few Cat 3s, Cat 4s, Cat 5s. They're able to go out, and I've seen a lot of folks who maybe this time of year would be doing, 50, 60 mile rides on the weekend, that are now, they've been out putting in 90, 100. They're not worried, and I'm not as concerned about them taking on a bigger training load, because we're not trying to make sure everything's super, race specific this time of year, not needing to balance their freshness quite as much. So there's a little less risk, in trying to make sure you're dialing everything in perfectly. So they're building a solid base right now.
So, and then what goes right along with that is that when you're not having to think about, like you said, the fatigue factor over a specific, a week or block or whatever, you can put in that extra quality. We can insert more quality. Whereas, like, again, if you're having to back down, even just back down Friday for a Saturday race, the quality, you're certainly not going to still give somebody a harder workout on a Thursday, if they have a race on Saturday that they're really concerned about.
Most of the time for my people, it's Thursday is off. Friday is an opener style ride. And we got a specific workout that works for a lot of folks. And then you're in, and it's not a big training day. It's like an hour of opener style work. And then you're going into a reduced volume weekend typically.
And for triathlon, it's very similar. It's a 2 or 3 day drop-in period where you're reducing what you're, doing for that. And then the day before a race always ends up just being like 20 minutes of bike, 20 minutes or just some opener stuff. And
then Monday's usually rest day. So and then Tuesday could go back to quality, more structured stuff. But sometimes, depending on how intense it was, dealing with triathletes, cyclists, runners, you're out in the heat as well this time of year. So your race may not be very long. And if you're just looking at the data, that may not seem like a massive training stress, but now you've been out in the heat all day and you're dehydrated and your body's like essentially becoming more fatigued without the training stress benefit of it. So you can get into Monday and Tuesday and still feel smoked from a weekend.
Yeah.
But if you're not out in the sun all day and you're able to get quality stuff in, we're seeing much higher quality training blocks out of folks.
Yeah. And it's allowed, it has allowed people to like do a little bit more of experimentation this time of year. Whereas normally, like for the folks that we coach that train year round, they're going to train no matter what year round. And we're looking at, getting some improvements from them, like in their limiters over, and it usually has to happen over the off season. Now we've been able to target limiters like for months and months and months.
8-week blocks, of focusing on stuff that ordinarily, if you got a triathlete who's going to be doing, a 70.3, like you're probably not going to be doing a ton of VO2 max work,
right?
5-minute efforts, 3-minute efforts, or shorter, right? So you're not going to be working that stuff nearly as much because you got to go much more sports specific with it.
Yeah, and that like, totally agree on the.
Yeah.
You can get, you either go more sports specific or toward the limiter. And again, that's why we've been seeing people triathletes specifically, hitting new threshold bests this time of year, because a lot of them we still have doing like super threshold efforts. Whereas if you're doing a race in the next 4 to 8 weeks, it's starting to get to the point where you have to just do steady state stuff, and the volume load becomes so high that you can't really work on those things, you risk burnout and injury and all that stuff.
And like from the road cycling standpoint, I've been able to experiment a little bit more with the amount of training stress that people can handle. Like there's some people that are wanting to train more, but they've got, we're working around a crazy life schedule. We're working around all these races that, they're trying to do, and trying to make sure they've got, the freshness going into them like we've spoken about. But this has been a great opportunity to say, okay, well, if you do get a little overextended, that's going to be okay. We can put in a bigger rest week if we need to, but let's see what your body can handle and how it responds when there's not the risk or as much risk of overreaching being a major issue. So it's been cool to kind of experiment with that. And it's something that moving into next year can be like, okay, we look back on it and say, hey, this is where we were putting in this big training block. We were able to do it because there wasn't a race we were trying to work into the middle of the whole thing, or 2 races. And now we can use that going forward. We look back and go, okay, well, you hit new threshold bests, or you hit new 5-minute bests, or whatever it may be. We can look back and review that. And now that's something we take into 2021. Like, okay, let's put a block like that 6 weeks out, 8 weeks out from one of your goal races. And we know how your body's going to respond to it.
Yeah. On our end, coaching wise, it has allowed us to like learn more about our athletes and what they can and cannot handle. Cause I've learned both ways. Like there are some people who I've learned that where their limitations are on as far as like how much intensity they can.
Where the breaking point is, so to speak, right?
I mean, but in a normal season.
Which is super valuable. That's good to know.
In a normal season, we probably would err on the side of caution and never really figure that out. So going forward, we now have a kind of a ceiling, that we know that we can't really go over.
Or you need to be very cautious, like getting to that, right? As you near that ceiling with the athlete. I
feel a little bad for the people who did jump into the sport this year for in our area, having a 70.3 come to Memphis was a huge thing, or is a huge thing. And people came out of the woodwork to sign up for this event, many of which have never done a triathlon, have no idea where to start. And, but they've probably been, especially people in our training group have been putting in work since January, and a lot of them, again, have never done anything like this. So like, I feel a little bit bad for them, because if the races don't happen, it's not the end of the world for sure, but it's, it just puts off how long it's going to be before they get to cash in on that reward.
Exactly.
They get that reward.
Well, and to experience the community, right? Because that's
Right.
like one of the biggest things that gets most people hooked is that race day. Right. The reward, as you're talking about.
You want them to experience the races as they are normally, because that is what keeps people in the sport. Like you get that reward, you cross the finish line, you get tied into the community. Everyone's super positive, jazzed up. I mean, like post race is like the best, like it's the coolest thing ever.
Yep.
But you want that to be normal. Like we want that to be normal. So we want them to have those experiences when they do have them, so that they get the right impression about the sport and they stay in it. But at the same time, it also has allowed these new athletes like a lot of extra time to work on skills and foundation and stuff like that you would never you would never allot this time for if you were doing your first triathlon, your first 70.3 or whatever. You would never allot this time because you'd be only concerned about doing enough volume to get to the finish line.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've had all this time to work with, especially our training group, on pedal stroke skills and very fine motor swim technique and things like that we would never have been able to do.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of those new people to the sport as well, they go out and, because Memphis in May was going to be one of the things on the program, was something we worked into that training group. And so that happens in May, hence the name. Had that happened, there's going to be a big bulk of those people that are now going to start looking what other races. Like, I want to get to as many other races as I can. And now those people aren't going to get they're going to get derailed from the build towards a 70.3 if that's their goal, because they're racing so much. So there we go.
Yeah. One of the other main things that we've talked about a ton is that we've noticed more of our athletes actually doing their strength work, and then also like at the same time it's challenged us a little bit in making sure that people are getting in the training that they need to be prepared, but with big restrictions. So with no gyms and no pools open, we had to kind of pivot and increase the number of days we were doing our online strength class. And that's all done with equipment in the home, which was easy. All we had to do was add another day. We've been doing it for years, so that was no big deal. But like going in and developing an actual dry land swim training program for people was a little bit of a challenge because we never had to do it before. Like, we've always been able to just go and send people to a pool and they get the swim specific training in the pool. And so you don't necessarily even like fully understand the value of like dryland training until you're forced to do it. And
now that's one more thing you can take with you if you're traveling.
Absolutely. It transcends this whole pandemic. Like there are always going to be restrictions. People are always going to have restricted training, especially if you work and travel and stuff like that. So it's allowed us to develop this program to where we know now, like if people are limited on their swimming ability, like swimming facilities, their swim facilities, that they're still going to be able to get in a workout that's going to be tailored and specific and actually move the needle. Because again, we had people, the program that we developed was basically 2 days worth of fine motor work with some strength training, core work in there, and then 1 day that's more muscular endurance based that really smoked some people, but come to find out they ended up developing some really superior muscular endurance in the swim specific muscles. So when they got back in the pool, they were crushing it. Like we literally had people take 30 seconds off of their best ever 400 meter time trial and hadn't swam in 2.5 months. So, I mean, there's a lot to be said about, tough times. You got to be creative and put your thinking cap on, but all this stuff again transcends into more realistic life scenarios, not just a pandemic scenario.
Yeah, I've seen a lot with my athletes where before people were nervous about strength training because of soreness,
right?
And they didn't want to be sore because it would impact the quality of a workout, like a bike specific or run specific style workout. But now when it's in their mind, like, okay, well, races have been delayed for 4 months. If I'm sore for the next month and we're able to just scale back some intensity on the bike, which was fine as well, in other areas of training, I've had more people like actually hitting their strength workouts than they have probably since we started. So that's been and they're seeing the value of it too. So that's like, the win-win, right? Once you start seeing the value, you don't see it after one workout.
It's the comments on like how much better people are feeling after doing the strength training, and people figuring out that they actually do enjoy the strength training, like would have never happened because we'd be so concerned with just getting in the quality work, swim, bike, run, or bike only or run only or whatever. So it really has been, nice to see everyone doing the strength work and being durable.
And if you haven't, you still have a chance to do that. Like, if
you
you're listening and you're not doing strength training, we will say it at least once per month.
Yeah, it's not too late to get started on it.
Add strength work for sure. Last one.
Yeah, go for it.
Saving that money.
Yeah,
racing ain't overly cheap.
If you've paid for the races, you now have an entire season paid for next year.
Exactly. That's a win.
But you've been, your travel costs are reduced. So.
Exactly.
Hey, you know what? I think it calls for a new bike day.
I was gonna say, if you have a budget that you a line item in your budget towards upgrading things or going towards races, you can now just move that towards upgrading some parts on the bike or equipment that you've been needing that will improve your speed next year.
Yeah, now you just got to find one.
Just got to, maybe go for wheels or some of those new fast running shoes.
Yeah. All right, I think that's about all we got. That's a lot of, that glass is full, I think.
Hey, turn those lemons into lemonade. Let's hear what you found. So anything that maybe we didn't cover, like what are the upsides you've seen? Well, one thing I didn't mention, there was a long stretch of group rides not happening.
Yeah.
And I know some people are doing group rides, other people are not. We won't get into the debate on that, but the fact that there was a big block of people not doing group rides and not doing racing and instead doing a lot of quality structured stuff.
Yeah.
And seeing the positive results of that.
Yeah. Yeah, group rides just get very usually too hard. And so it pretty much puts the smackdown on quality for the rest of the week, generally speaking.
Yeah.
It's
pretty unstructured, right? So you get good at
nothing specific.
You get good at 90-second efforts, and if you're someone who needs to improve 10-minute efforts, you don't really get that
happening.
So it was good to see that, and it was good for some of my athletes to see that too. Like, there is value to doing structured blocks still in the middle of what should be a race season. Yeah.
So let us hear your any other upside that you've found to this whole pandemic season. So we're interested to hear, but we appreciate everyone listening, hanging out, watching, whatever you're doing. We will catch you guys next time.
Make sure you go to YouTube. We need 10,000
subscribe.
1,100 subscribers is our goal by 2013 or 23. Sorry. What year are we?
2030. Yeah.
All right, crew.
All right.
Peace.
Adios.